"Give me that ring or you three will sleep on the street tonight," said the landlady Amanda, her hand stretched over the frail 80-year-old woman's bed. One of the little granddaughters stepped in front of her grandmother. "Don't touch her," Amanda laughed. "How touching!" The protector of the helpless. What Amanda didn't know was that a far more powerful protector had just arrived. From the hallway, Dr. Evans, Mrs. Rose's billionaire grandson, heard the threat. Years of regret for his absence turned into an icy fury. He wasn't there just to say goodbye to his grandmother. He was about to become Amanda's worst nightmare. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Either pay $3,000 by tomorrow or give me that ring as partial payment until you're caught up. Amanda Wilson's cold voice sliced through the small apartment as she towered over the frail, elderly woman in the worn armchair. Mrs. Rose Johnson clutched her gold wedding band, her thin fingers trembling. "This ring is all I have left of Thomas. Please, I just need more time." The words echoed down the hallway where Michael Evans stood frozen, his hand still raised to knock on the apartment door he hadn't approached in 15 years. He hadn't expected to arrive in the middle of a confrontation. 3 months behind is 3 months too many, Amanda continued, her expensive perfume filling the small living room. "Riverside Heights is changing. People who can't afford to live here need to move on." From his position, Michael could see 3 identical little girls huddled behind a threadbare sofa, their wide eyes filled with fear as they watched the landlady threaten their grandmother. Michael took a deep breath and pushed the door open. "I believe I can help with that situation." Amanda Wilson spun around, her perfectly styled blonde hair swinging. Her eyes widened as she took in his tailored suit and confident stance. "Who are you?" "This is a private matter." "Michael?" Mrs. Rose's voice was barely a whisper, her hand moving to her heart. "Is that really you?" Michael stepped fully into the apartment, the weight of 15 years of absence hanging between them. "Yes, Grandma. It's me." "Dr. Michael Evans," he said to Amanda, extending his business card. "Mrs. Johnson's grandson. I understand there's an issue with the rent." Amanda's face shifted from annoyance to calculation as she read the card. Evans Medical Solutions, founder and CEO. Her tone immediately softened. "Dr. Evans? What a surprise. I had no idea Mrs. Johnson had such a distinguished relative." "Clearly," Michael said coolly. "Now about that rent situation." Amanda straightened her designer jacket. "Just a standard business matter. Your grandmother has fallen behind, but I'm sure we can work something out now that you're here. I'll have the full amount transferred to your account today, plus 3 months in advance," Michael said. "And I'd like documentation of all maintenance requests for this building from the past year." "That's not really necessary." "It is to me." Michael's voice hardened. "And be aware that any predatory practices against elderly residents could constitute elder abuse under New York state law." Amanda's smile tightened. "I was simply following standard procedures for non-payment." "Threatening to take a wedding ring from an 80-year-old cancer patient is your standard procedure? Interesting. My attorneys will be fascinated to hear that." Amanda gathered her purse quickly. "There's been a misunderstanding. I'll email the payment details and forget about the late fees as a courtesy." After Amanda hurried out, silence filled the small apartment. The 3 little girls remained frozen behind the sofa, only their eyes visible as they studied him. "Girls," Mrs. Rose called softly, "come meet your Uncle Michael." The triplets didn't move, their identical faces showing identical suspicion. "It's all right," Mrs. Rose said. "He's family." Michael knelt down, trying to appear less intimidating. "Hello there. I'm your mother's brother." The boldest of the 3 spoke up. "Grandma said you were a doctor far away." "That's right. I live in Manhattan now, but I grew up right here in Harlem." "Why did you never visit us?" another triplet asked bluntly. Michael felt the question like a physical blow. How could he explain 15 years of estrangement to 5-year-olds? Mrs. Rose intervened. Girls, why don't you play in your room for a little while? Uncle Michael and I need to talk. After the triplets reluctantly disappeared into the second bedroom, Michael took in his grandmother's appearance. She had aged dramatically since he'd last seen her. Her once robust frame was thin, her dark skin ashen, and her movements slow and painful. How long have you been sick, Grandma? He asked, moving to sit beside her. Almost a year now, she admitted. Pancreatic cancer. The doctors said... She trailed off. Why didn't you contact me? Michael asked, the weight of his absence crushing him. Mrs. Rose looked at him steadily. Would you have come? The question hung between them, honest and painful. I got a letter, Michael finally said, from your neighbor, Mr. Washington from apartment 4B. He wrote that you were ill and caring for 3 young children. Mrs. Rose nodded. Jerome is a good man. I didn't ask him to write to you. I should have known, Michael said, looking around the cramped apartment. About the girls. About everything. Your mother died 5 years ago, Mrs. Rose said quietly. Her daughter, your sister Jennifer, and her husband died in a car accident 2 years ago. The triplets had nowhere else to go. Michael closed his eyes, absorbing the blow. I didn't know I had a sister. Your mother was already pregnant when you left. You never came back, never called. She tried to reach you when Jennifer was born. The weight of all he had missed, a sister he never knew, nieces he was just meeting, pressed down on Michael's shoulders. I was angry, he admitted, after that fight with Mom about medical school. She wanted me to take over the grocery store, but I had dreams. Then success came, and more success. And the longer I stayed away, the harder it was to come back. Mrs. Rose reached out, her thin hand touching his. And now you're a big important doctor with your own company. Executive, actually. I haven't practiced medicine in years. The admission felt hollow. I develop medical technologies now. And you're rich, Mrs. Rose observed. That fancy suit didn't come cheap. Michael nodded. I've done well. A small noise made him look up. The triplets were peeking around the doorway, listening. Come in, girls, Mrs. Rose called. Meet your uncle properly. The triplets entered cautiously, standing in a row. Looking at them now, Michael could see subtle differences between them. This is Tiana, Mrs. Rose said, indicating the one who had spoken first. She's our leader. This is Tasha, our quiet thinker. And this is Tara, our little dancer. Michael smiled at them, feeling utterly out of his depth. It's nice to meet you all. Are you going to make Grandma better? Tasha asked quietly. The directness of the question startled him. I'm going to try to help, he said carefully. I know many excellent doctors. Can you fix our apartment too? Tiana asked. The ceiling leaks when it rains. And the heat doesn't work right, Tara added. Michael looked around, noticing for the first time the water stains on the ceiling, the peeling paint and the tape around the windows. Yes, he said firmly. I can help with all of that. Mrs. Rose's breathing became labored and she closed her eyes. Girls, I need to rest now. Michael helped her to her bedroom, alarmed at how light she felt in his arms. As he settled her on the bed, she gripped his hand. Michael, if something happens to me, don't talk like that, he interrupted. I'm going to get you the best treatment available. Listen to me, she insisted. The girls have no one else. The state will take them if I can't care for them. Michael felt panic rise in his chest. I don't know anything about children. You'll learn, Mrs. Rose said simply, like I did when I took you in after your father died. Michael had forgotten that, how his grandmother had raised him until his mother could manage on her own, another debt he had never repaid. After Mrs. Rose fell asleep, Michael helped the triplets prepare for bed. Their routine was well established and they clearly knew how to care for themselves and each other. They showed him where everything was kept, correcting him gently when he got things wrong. Later that night, As the triplets slept and Michael made calls to arrange medical care for his grandmother, he stood at the apartment window looking out at the Harlem streets. Everything had changed, yet so much remained familiar. His phone buzzed with a text message. He looked down to see a message from Amanda. "You can't protect them forever, Dr. Evans. Some debts run deeper than money." Michael's jaw tightened as he looked at his sleeping family. Amanda Wilson had no idea who she was dealing with. He was home now, and he wasn't going anywhere. Michael tucked his phone away, pushing aside Amanda's threatening text. He was exhausted after making calls until past midnight to arrange medical care for his grandmother. The cramped couch in the living room was a far cry from his king-sized bed in Manhattan, but he eventually drifted into an uneasy sleep. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains when Michael felt a strange sensation. He opened his eyes to find 3 identical faces hovering inches from his own, studying him with solemn curiosity. "Is he really our uncle?" Tara whispered loudly. "Grandma said so," Tiana replied, never taking her eyes off Michael. "He doesn't look like the pictures," Tasha observed quietly. Michael sat up slowly, trying not to startle them. "Good morning, girls." The triplets jumped back in perfect unison, retreating to the other side of the coffee table. "We're making breakfast," Tiana announced. "Grandma is still sleeping." Michael rubbed his face. "That's very responsible of you. Let me help." "We don't need help," Tiana said firmly. "We do it every day." Michael stood up, reaching for his shoes where he'd left them neatly beside the couch. They weren't there. "Has anyone seen my shoes?" he asked. The girls exchanged quick glances but remained silent. "I need to get dressed before the doctors arrive to check on Grandma," Michael explained. Tasha's eyes widened slightly. "What doctors?" "Special doctors who can help Grandma feel better. They'll be here at 9 o'clock. "It's already 8:30, Tara said, pointing to the clock on the wall. Michael looked around more frantically. "Girls, please, where are my shoes?" "Maybe they ran away," Tara suggested with a small smile, "because they didn't know you." Michael suddenly understood. This was a test. "You're right," he said calmly, sitting back down. "I am a stranger to you. But I'm here now and I want to help Grandma and get to know all of you." The triplets huddled together, whispering. Finally, Tiana nodded. "They're in the oven," she said. "We didn't turn it on." 20 minutes later, Michael had made coffee and was watching the girls prepare cereal with practiced efficiency when the doorbell rang. "That must be the medical team," Michael said, opening the door to reveal 3 professionals with medical bags. "Dr. Evans?" A tall woman extended her hand. "Dr. Karen Phillips. These are my colleagues, Dr. Wright and Nurse Gomez." Michael led them to Mrs. Rose's bedroom, where she was now awake but visibly weak. The girls hovered in the doorway, watching anxiously as the doctors examined their grandmother. After 30 minutes of tests and questions, Dr. Phillips asked to speak with Michael privately. They stepped into the living room, where the doctor's expression turned grave. "The cancer is more advanced than I expected," she said quietly. "The previous treatments were inadequate for the aggressive nature of her condition. She needs immediate hospitalization and intensive therapy." "What are her chances?" Michael asked. "Without proper treatment? Weeks, maybe a month. With aggressive intervention, we could extend that significantly, possibly even—" A wail interrupted them as Tiana burst into tears. All 3 triplets had been listening from behind the sofa. "Grandma can't go to the hospital," Tiana cried. "People don't come back from hospitals." Tara and Tasha began crying too, their small bodies shaking with sobs. Michael knelt down, completely unprepared for this emotional storm. "Your grandmother needs special care," he began. "No!" Tasha screamed, surprising Michael with her volume. "Our mom and dad went to the hospital and never came home." The front door opened suddenly, revealing a young woman carrying several folders. She took in the scene instantly. "Girls!" she called, dropping her bags and kneeling. The triplets ran to her, burying their faces in her shoulders. "What happened?" the woman demanded, looking up at Michael with suspicion. "The medical team recommended hospitalization for Mrs. Rose," Dr. Phillips explained. "The children overheard." "I see." The woman hugged the girls tightly. "Tiana, Tasha, Tara, remember what we talked about? Sometimes people need extra help to get better. That doesn't mean Grandma won't come home." The triplets' sobs quieted slightly. "Girls, why don't you go check on Grandma?" "I'm sure she could use some hugs right now," the woman suggested. After the children left, she stood and faced Michael. "Sarah Martinez, I'm the social worker assigned to the Johnson family for the past 2 years. You must be the long-lost grandson." Her tone made it clear what she thought of his absence. "Michael Evans," he confirmed. "Thank you for helping my family." "These people needed you years ago," Sarah said bluntly. "Money can't buy back lost time, Dr. Evans." "I know that," Michael replied, feeling the truth of her words. "But I'm here now." "For how long? Until it gets uncomfortable? Until it interferes with your important business?" Before Michael could answer, Dr. Phillips intervened. "We need to make arrangements for Mrs. Johnson's admission today." The next hour passed in a blur of planning and preparations. Sarah helped the triplets pack a small bag for their grandmother while Michael arranged for a private room at Memorial Sloan Kettering. The girls remained quiet but watched Michael's every move with wary eyes. After the medical team left with arrangements for an ambulance to come later, Michael decided to inspect the apartment's problems. The ceiling leak above the girls' bedroom was worse than he'd initially noticed, with black mold growing along the edges. The windows barely closed properly, letting in cold draft. The ancient radiator clanked but provided little heat. "This building is falling apart," Michael said to Sarah as she helped the girls get dressed. "Amanda Wilson doesn't care," Sarah replied. "She wants everyone out so she can renovate and triple the rent." Michael stepped into the hallway, noticing similar water damage along the ceiling. He knocked on the next apartment door, where an elderly man answered. "Mr. Washington?" Michael guessed. "I'm Michael Evans, Mrs. Rose's grandson. Thank you for writing to me." "About time you showed up," the man said, but his eyes were kind. "Your grandmother is a saint, been helping everyone in this building for decades. What can you tell me about the landlady, Amanda Wilson?" Mr. Washington scowled. "Started buying up buildings in Harlem 5 years ago. Raises the rent, ignores repairs, makes life miserable until people leave. Then she renovates and brings in rich folks." Michael thanked him and headed downstairs to the management office. A bored receptionist barely looked up when he entered. "I'd like to pay my grandmother's back rent," Michael said. "Rose Johnson, apartment 5B. The receptionist typed on her computer. "That account has already entered eviction proceedings. Payment no longer accepted without court fees." "Eviction? Since when?" "Filed yesterday afternoon," she said, turning the screen to show him. "Actually, half the building is in eviction status now." Michael left the office, anger building inside him. Amanda had filed for eviction immediately after their confrontation, despite his promise to pay. Back in the apartment, he found Sarah helping Mrs. Rose dress for the hospital. "I need to stay here with the girls," Michael announced. "Can you recommend a hotel nearby?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "There are no hotels in this part of Harlem, and these children need stability, not a rotating cast of caregivers." "I'll stay here then," Michael decided. "On the couch." "In your $1,000 suit?" Sarah asked skeptically. Michael made a quick call to his assistant. "Emma, I need you to pack some of my clothes and basic necessities. I'll be staying in Harlem indefinitely." That evening, after Mrs. Rose had been taken to the hospital with the girls' tearful goodbyes, Michael attempted to make dinner from the sparse contents of the refrigerator. The resulting burned macaroni and cheese was inedible. "We can make our own dinner," Tiana said, taking over the kitchen with her sisters. Michael watched in amazement as the 5-year-olds competently prepared simple sandwiches. "Grandma taught us," Tasha explained, noticing his surprise. "We need to give Grandma her medicine at 7 o'clock, Tara said, looking at the clock. "She's at the hospital now," Michael reminded her gently. "The doctors will give her medicine." Tasha shook her head. "No, her medicine is here." She led Michael to a cabinet filled with prescription bottles. 2 pink pills and 1 white one at 7, 1 blue one at bedtime. Michael was stunned by their knowledge of the medication routine. Later that night, after finally getting the reluctant triplets to bed, Michael explored the apartment more thoroughly. In the back of Mrs. Rose's closet, he found a box labeled "Family," filled with photographs. Pictures of his mother as a young woman. Pictures of a girl who must have been his sister Jennifer. And to his surprise, newspaper clippings about his company and achievements. She had been following his life all along, even when he had ignored hers. His phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email that had been forwarded by one of his investigators. Amanda Wilson and her brother Richard had scheduled an emergency board meeting at DevCorp about accelerating the Riverside Heights acquisition timeline. Michael's jaw tightened. This wasn't just about back rent. Something much bigger was happening, and his family was caught in the middle. Michael spent the next morning researching DevCorp on his laptop. The company was owned by Richard Wilson, Amanda's older brother. They specialized in buying old buildings, evicting current residents, and building expensive new apartments. This wasn't just about his grandmother's unpaid rent. They wanted the entire building gone. His phone rang. It was Dr. Phillips from Memorial Sloan Kettering. "Dr. Evans, we've completed Mrs. Johnson's initial assessment. The news isn't good, but we have treatment options to discuss." "I'll be there in an hour," Michael said, looking at the triplets who were quietly coloring at the kitchen table. "And I'll be bringing 3 little girls." Tiana looked up immediately. "We're going to see Grandma?" "Yes," Michael confirmed. "But first we need to talk about hospitals." The girls put down their crayons, their faces serious. "Hospitals are scary," Tara whispered. "They can be," Michael agreed, sitting on the floor to be at their level. "But they're also places where doctors like me work very hard to make people better." But Mommy and Daddy went to the hospital," Tasha said, her voice breaking. Michael took a deep breath. "Sometimes, when people are hurt very badly, even doctors can't fix them. That's what happened with your parents. But your grandma has a different problem, and I know doctors who are very good at treating it." The girls didn't look convinced, but they didn't argue as Michael helped them get ready. At the hospital, the triplets held hands tightly, their eyes wide as they walked through the bright hallways. When they reached Mrs. Rose's room, they hesitated at the door. "Grandma looks tired, but she's still your same grandma," Michael explained. "She has some tubes helping her get medicine, but they don't hurt." Mrs. Rose brightened when she saw them. "My sweet girls!" And Michael, "Come in, come in." The triplets rushed to her bedside while Michael stepped out to speak with Dr. Amir Patel, the oncologist assigned to Mrs. Rose's case. "The cancer has spread more than we hoped, Doctor," Patel explained. "Standard treatments have been ineffective. However, we have a clinical trial that might be appropriate for her case." "What are the chances?" Michael asked. "Without the trial? Perhaps 2 months. With it? We might extend that significantly, maybe even achieve remission in the best-case scenario." Michael rubbed his eyes. "She needs to be here for those girls." "I understand," Dr. Patel said kindly. "There's one more thing to consider. The treatment is intense. Mrs. Johnson will need someone reliable to care for the children." "I'll be there," Michael assured him. "But I should also find a child psychologist to help them process everything." After signing the consent forms, Michael returned to find the triplets showing Mrs. Rose their drawings. For a moment, they looked like any normal family. That evening, back at the apartment, Michael received a delivery from his Manhattan home: clothes, toiletries, and his work equipment. The triplets watched curiously as he converted the small living room into a bedroom space. "Are you really staying here?" Tiana asked suspiciously. "Yes," Michael answered, hanging a few shirts in the hall closet. for as long as you and Grandma need me." "That's what our first foster mommy said too," Tara commented. "But she gave us back after 2 weeks." Michael stopped what he was doing. "Foster mommy?" "After Mommy and Daddy went to heaven," Tasha explained. "We lived with Mrs. Peterson first, then with the Garcias, then Grandma got us." Michael hadn't known the girls had been in foster care. How much more had he missed? The doorbell rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Sarah Martinez carrying a bag of groceries. "I thought you might need some real food," she said, eyeing the empty pizza boxes on the counter. "Thank you," Michael said sincerely. "The girls told me they were in foster care before coming to live with my grandmother." Sarah nodded, unpacking vegetables and chicken. "For about 6 months. The system was trying to keep them together, which isn't easy with triplets." She gave him a measured look. "You seem different today." "Different how?" "Less billionaire, more human." She handed grocery bags to the girls, who began helping put things away. "There's a community meeting tomorrow night at the Harlem Hope Center. You should come." "What kind of meeting?" Michael asked. "The kind where people fight to keep their homes," Sarah replied. 7 o'clock. The next evening, Michael took the triplets to visit Mrs. Rose at the hospital, then dropped them at the apartment with a babysitter before heading to the community meeting. The Harlem Hope Center was a renovated church basement filled with about 50 neighborhood residents. Michael sat in the back, listening as people discussed various housing issues. Then a man named James Turner took the podium. "I've obtained a copy of DevCorp's development plan," he announced, holding up a thick document. "They're planning to demolish not just Riverside Heights, but 6 blocks of our neighborhood for luxury condominiums." The room erupted in angry voices. "When?" someone shouted. "The plan says demolition would begin in 6 months after final approvals," James explained. "But my source says they're trying to accelerate the timeline." Michael recalled the email about the emergency board meeting. This explained everything. After the meeting, Michael approached James. "I'm Michael Evans, Mrs. Rose Johnson's grandson from Riverside Heights." James nodded. "I know who you are, Dr. Evans. Your medical company is well known." "I want to help fight this," Michael said. "Can I see the development plans?" Back at the apartment, after relieving the babysitter, Michael stayed up late studying the DevCorp documents. The company had already secured most of the necessary permits. They were moving methodically, using political connections to override community objections. The next morning, Michael called his corporate investigator. "David, I need everything you can find on DevCorp and the Wilsons. Look for lawsuits, complaints, permit irregularities, anything we can use." Over the next few days, Michael established a routine. Mornings with the triplets, midday at the hospital with Mrs. Rose, afternoons working remotely, and evenings with the girls. Slowly, they began to warm to him. When Tiana's doll broke, losing an arm, Michael carefully sewed it back together. Her small smile of thanks was his first breakthrough. Michael noticed Tasha always carried books, so he brought her new ones about space and dinosaurs. She didn't thank him, but he found her reading them intently by flashlight after bedtime. Tara loved to dance, spinning and twirling around the apartment. Michael cleared a small space in the living room as her dance floor and played music for her. Sarah visited regularly, gradually thawing toward Michael as she saw his efforts. One evening as they sat at the kitchen table after the girls were asleep, she admitted, "You're trying harder than I expected." "They're my family," Michael said simply. "You didn't think so 2 weeks ago," she pointed out. "I was wrong," he acknowledged, "about many things." Their conversation was interrupted by a cry from the girls' bedroom. Michael rushed in to find Tiana shaking with fever, her sisters watching fearfully. "She's burning up," Tasha said worriedly. Michael quickly checked Tiana's temperature, 103 degrees. He grabbed the children's medicine from the bathroom and gently coaxed Tiana to take it, then applied a cool cloth to her forehead. "Is she going to die?" Tara asked in a tiny voice. "No, sweetheart," Michael assured her, his doctor training taking over. "It's just a fever. I'm going to help her get better." Michael sat with Tiana through the night, monitoring her temperature and keeping her comfortable. By morning, the fever had broken. When she opened her eyes, she looked at him with new recognition. "Thank you, Uncle Michael," she whispered, the first time any of the triplets had called him Uncle instead of just Michael or the doctor man. Later that day, during their hospital visit, Michael noticed Mrs. Rose seemed stronger. The experimental treatment was showing early positive signs. "The doctors say you're responding well to the treatment," Michael told her. Mrs. Rose smiled. "I have a reason to fight. 4 reasons, actually," she added, looking at Michael and the triplets. After the girls went to play in the children's area supervised by a nurse, Mrs. Rose patted the bed beside her. "Sit, Michael. I want to tell you about your mother." "I should have called her," Michael said, the old guilt surfacing. "Yes, you should have," Mrs. Rose agreed. "She was stubborn like you. She wanted the grocery store to be your future because it represented security to her. After your father died, she feared losing everything." "I didn't understand that then," Michael admitted. "She was proud of you," Mrs. Rose continued, pulling a worn newspaper clipping from her bedside drawer. It showed Michael receiving an award for medical innovation 5 years earlier. "She kept every article about you, said her son was saving lives while she was selling milk and bread." Michael's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I wish I could tell her I'm sorry." "You can honor her by being there for her granddaughters," Mrs. Rose said. "Those girls need roots, Michael. A connection to their history." As they left the hospital that evening, Michael's phone rang. It was his lawyer. "I've just received troubling news," the lawyer said. "DevCorp has filed for expedited demolition permits. They're planning to tear down the building in 60 days, not 6 months. Michael looked at the triplets holding hands as they walked ahead of him. His family had already lost too much. He wouldn't let them lose their home, too. Michael hurried the triplets back to the apartment, his mind racing. 60 days wasn't much time to stop a powerful company like DevCorp. As soon as the girls were asleep, he began making calls. "Julia, I need your entire real estate legal team on this," Michael told his company's chief counsel. "DevCorp is trying to demolish my grandmother's building in 60 days. I want every possible way to fight this." Early the next morning, Michael found the triplets already awake, sitting at the kitchen table. "We made you a chair," Tiana announced, pointing to a kitchen chair now decorated with colored paper and stickers. "It says Uncle Mike on it." Michael felt a lump in his throat as he examined their handiwork. "This is the best chair I've ever had," he said sincerely. While the girls ate breakfast, Michael searched through Mrs. Rose's old chest of drawers for any rental documents that might help his case. In the bottom drawer, beneath folded blankets, he discovered a metal box. Inside were birth certificates, old photos, and several folders of legal documents. One thick envelope caught his eye. "Johnson Family Trust, private." Michael opened it and found documents dated 15 years ago. His mother had taken the family's savings, nearly $100,000, and invested it in a small real estate investment trust called Harlem Heritage Holdings. "What did you find?" Tasha asked, appearing beside him. "Some papers that belong to your grandmother and my mother," Michael explained. "Grown-up papers about money and buildings." Tasha nodded seriously. "Grandma keeps important papers in that box." Michael took the documents to the kitchen table and called his financial advisor while the girls colored. "Robert, I need you to research a trust called Harlem Heritage Holdings. My mother invested in it years ago." 2 hours later, while Michael was helping the triplets get ready to visit Mrs. Rose, Robert called back. "Michael, this is fascinating. Your mother was very smart. That small trust has grown significantly. It now owns shares in multiple companies, including, you won't believe this, a 5% stake in DevCorp itself." 5%? Michael repeated. "Is that enough to block their development plans?" "Not alone," Robert explained. "You'd need at least 25% to make real trouble for them. But it does give you a seat at the table." At the hospital, Michael was pleased to see Mrs. Rose sitting up in bed, looking stronger than the day before. "The doctor says the treatment is working better than expected," she told Michael, as the triplets showed her their new drawings. "That's wonderful news," Michael said, genuinely relieved. "Grandma, did you know my mother invested in something called Harlem Heritage Holdings?" Mrs. Rose nodded. "She was determined to build something that would last. After your father died, she put every extra penny into that trust, said it was her way of making sure our community stayed in our hands. The trust owns part of the company that's trying to tear down your building," Michael explained. "Hilda always was smarter than people gave her credit for," Mrs. Rose said proudly, mentioning Michael's mother. "She believed in planning for the future." Later that afternoon, Sarah arrived at the apartment with flyers. "We're holding an emergency building meeting tonight in the community room," she explained. "Everyone needs to know what DevCorp is planning." "I found something that might help us," Michael told her, showing the trust documents. Sarah's eyes widened as she read. "This gives us leverage, but not enough to stop them completely." "It's a start," Michael said, "and I have more resources we can use." That evening, while a neighbor watched the triplets, Michael and Sarah gathered with 30 residents in the building's shabby community room. People sat on folding chairs, their faces worried as Sarah explained the situation. "DevCorp has filed for expedited demolition. They want us all out in 60 days, she told the group. Angry voices filled the room. An elderly woman stood up, leaning on her cane. "I've lived here 43 years, she said. "Where am I supposed to go?" "They can't just throw us out, can they?" asked a young father holding a baby. Michael stood up. "My name is Michael Evans. My grandmother is Rose Johnson from apartment 5B. I'm working with lawyers to fight this, but we need your help. We need to document every case of neglect or harassment from Amanda Wilson." A middle-aged man raised his hand. "She shut off my heat last winter for 3 days when I complained about the leaking ceiling. She entered my apartment without permission while I was at work," a young woman added. One by one, residents shared their stories. Michael recorded them on his phone, building a case of tenant harassment and neglect. After the meeting, Sarah touched Michael's arm. "That was good, what you did. They needed to know they're not alone." "It's just the beginning," Michael promised. The next day, Michael hired contractors to fix the worst problems in Mrs. Rose's apartment: the leaking ceiling, broken windows, and faulty heating. He also arranged repairs for several elderly residents whose apartments had dangerous conditions. When Amanda Wilson heard about the repairs, she stormed into the building, catching Michael in the hallway. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded. "You can't make changes to the property without management approval." "I'm fixing dangerous conditions that you've ignored," Michael replied calmly. "It's all documented, including code violations that could result in significant fines." Amanda's eyes narrowed. "You think you're so clever. This neighborhood is changing whether these people like it or not." "Why are you doing this?" Michael asked. "These are families, elderly people. Where will they go?" "Sentimentality is for people who can't afford better options," Amanda sneered. "This is business. My brother and I are developing properties all over Harlem." "I know about DevCorp," Michael said, "and I know about the 5% ownership through Harlem Heritage Holdings." Amanda's face paled slightly. "That small trust is meaningless. Richard controls 90% of the company." "Maybe so," Michael agreed. "But I'm on the record now as a partial owner objecting to this project. That will slow things down in court." Amanda took a step closer. "Listen carefully, Dr. Evans. You're not the first person to try fighting us. We've dealt with community activists, tenant rights groups, and politicians. We always win." "We'll see about that," Michael said firmly. After Amanda left, Michael received a call from Richard Wilson himself. "Dr. Evans, this is Richard Wilson from DevCorp. I understand you've been making waves." "I'm protecting my family's home," Michael replied. Richard's laugh was cold. "Let's be realistic. You abandoned this neighborhood 15 years ago. Now you're back playing hero? My offer is simple. Stop interfering and I'll ensure your grandmother and her wards get a nice apartment in our new building at a reduced rate." "Not interested," Michael said. "And they're not wards. They're my nieces." "Then prepare for a fight you can't win," Richard warned before hanging up. That night, after putting the triplets to bed, Michael continued exploring the metal box of family documents. At the bottom, he found a worn photo album. Inside were pictures of his childhood, birthdays, school events, family gatherings. In the middle section were newspaper clippings about his early medical career, his first patent, the founding of his company. Mrs. Rose had carefully preserved every mention of him, even during the years of silence. The last page held a photo of the triplets as babies, with his sister Jennifer and her husband. Written on the back in Mrs. Rose's handwriting, "The family grows. Michael should know his nieces." She had wanted to tell him. All those years she had kept track of his life, proud of his accomplishments even when he had turned his back on the family. Michael wiped tears from his eyes as he closed the album. His phone buzzed with a message from his investigator. "Found evidence DevCorp bribed city officials on previous projects. Working on documentation. Will deliver tomorrow." The next morning, the triplets surprised Michael by asking about their mother. "Was our mommy like us when she was little?" Tara asked during breakfast. Michael hesitated. "I don't know. I never met your mother. She was born after I left." "That's sad," Tasha observed. "Didn't you want a sister?" "I didn't know about her," Michael admitted. "I made a mistake by staying away so long." "Grandma says mistakes are okay if you learn from them," Tiana said seriously. Michael smiled. "Your grandma is very wise." Later that day, Michael received the investigative report on DevCorp. The company had a history of questionable tactics, including possible bribery of officials to expedite approvals and ignore code violations. The evidence wasn't conclusive, but it provided another avenue to fight them. Michael stayed up late developing his strategy. He would use his ownership stake to demand corporate records. His legal team would challenge the demolition permits. The residents' testimonies would support claims of tenant harassment, and the bribery evidence could be leaked to the press if necessary. As exhaustion finally overtook him, Michael fell asleep on the couch surrounded by legal papers and photos of the family he had almost lost forever, a family he was now determined to protect at any cost. Outside the building, a black car sat idling. Inside, Amanda Wilson spoke on the phone. "He's found the trust documents." "Yes, he knows about the 5%. No, he's not backing down." "Yes, Richard, I understand what's at stake. We need to move to the next phase." Amanda hung up the phone and stared at the apartment building. Her brother Richard was getting impatient. They had investors waiting for this development, and Dr. Michael Evans was becoming a real problem. Inside his grandmother's apartment, Michael woke early the next morning. After watching the triplets eat breakfast, he made an important call. "Robert, I want to make an offer to purchase Riverside Heights," Michael told his financial advisor. "Double the market value. Get the paperwork ready today." "Double?" Robert sounded surprised. "That's extremely generous, Michael." "It's not about being generous. It's about being quick," Michael explained. "I need to move before DevCorp takes further action." 3 hours later, Michael sat in his company's Manhattan office for the first time since his return to Harlem. His executive team gathered around the conference table, looking confused. "You want to buy an old apartment building in Harlem?" asked Vivian Chen, his chief operating officer, "for double its value?" "Yes," Michael confirmed. "And if necessary, I'll use my personal funds. This isn't just a business decision." "It's your grandmother's building," Eric Tanner, his marketing director, said with understanding. "But what about the bigger picture? DevCorp controls the surrounding blocks too." "One step at a time," Michael replied. "First, we save Riverside Heights." After the meeting, Michael called Richard Wilson directly. "Mr. Wilson, I'd like to meet to discuss purchasing Riverside Heights." There was a pause on the line. "Interesting. My office, tomorrow at 10. The next morning, Michael arrived at DevCorp's gleaming office tower in Midtown. The receptionist led him to a large conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Richard Wilson stood at the head of the table, Amanda beside him. Richard was older than his sister, with silver hair and an expensive suit. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Dr. Evans, welcome," Richard said, not offering to shake hands. "Please, sit." Michael remained standing. "I'll be direct. I want to purchase Riverside Heights for twice its market value. Cash deal. Immediate closing." Richard laughed. "That's very generous, but I'm afraid the building isn't for sale." "Everything has a price," Michael countered. "Some things aren't for sale, Dr. Evans," Richard said, his smile fading. "You abandoned this neighborhood. Now it's our turn to reshape it." "Reshape it?" Michael questioned. "Or destroy it?" Richard walked to the window. "Progress requires change. Harlem's future isn't in crumbling buildings filled with people who can barely pay rent. It's in modern housing for professionals, upscale retail, restaurants." "And where do the current residents go?" Michael asked. "That's not my concern," Richard said coldly. "This neighborhood has been holding on to the past for too long. The cultural legacy people talk about? It's keeping Harlem from reaching its potential." "You mean its profit potential?" Michael challenged. Amanda stepped forward. "My brother has a vision for Harlem that goes beyond one old building. The entire area will be transformed into something unrecognizable to the people who've lived there for generations," Michael said. Richard's expression hardened. "This meeting is over. Your offer is rejected." "Good day, Dr. Evans." As Michael turned to leave, his phone rang. It was Sarah. "Michael, you need to come to the hospital right away." Her voice was urgent. "Mrs. Rose has had a complication. The doctors are taking her into emergency surgery." Michael rushed to Memorial Sloan Kettering, finding Sarah in the waiting room with the triplets. Tiana and Tara were crying while Tasha sat silent, her face pale. "What happened?" Michael asked Sarah. "The cancer caused bleeding near her liver," Sarah explained quietly. "They're operating now to stop it." Michael knelt beside the girls. "The doctors are helping Grandma right now. They're very good doctors." "Is Grandma going to die?" Tiana asked directly, tears streaming down her face. "The doctors will do everything they can to help her," Michael answered honestly. "She's getting the best care possible." Tara threw her arms around Michael's neck, sobbing. Tasha remained still, but reached for Michael's hand. For the next 6 hours, Michael and Sarah took turns comforting the triplets. They colored pictures for Mrs. Rose, read books, and finally fell asleep across the waiting room chairs. "You're good with them," Sarah observed as Michael covered Tasha with his jacket. "Better than I expected." "They make it easy," Michael said. "They're amazing children." With the girls asleep, Sarah and Michael sat together, the hospital quiet around them. "How did you get involved with my grandmother and the girls?" Michael asked. Sarah smiled faintly. "I grew up in that building, in apartment 2A. My mother was a single parent, worked 2 jobs. Mrs. Rose used to watch me after school." "You grew up there?" Michael was surprised. "I didn't realize." "When I became a social worker, I wanted to help families in my old neighborhood," Sarah continued. "Then 2 years ago, I got assigned to review the triplets' case when they came to live with Mrs. Rose." "She must have been 68 then," Michael calculated, "taking on 3 toddlers." "The system didn't want to place them with her because of her age," Sarah admitted. "But she fought for them, said family belongs together." Michael looked away, shame washing over him. "While I was busy building my company, she was fighting to keep our family together." Sarah touched his arm. "You're here now. That matters." Just after midnight, the surgeon appeared in the waiting room. Dr. Helen Wright looked tired, but satisfied. "The surgery was successful," she told Michael and Sarah. "We stopped the bleeding and removed a portion of the tumor that was causing pressure. She's stable now." "Thank you," Michael said, relief flooding through him. "When can we see her?" She'll be in recovery for a few hours, then intensive care. You can see her briefly in the morning, but she'll be heavily sedated." Michael nodded. "And long-term? What does this mean for her treatment?" "Actually, this gave us better access to the main tumor than we expected," Dr. Wright explained. "We were able to reduce its size significantly. If she continues responding to the treatment, her prognosis is better than before." After the doctor left, Michael helped Sarah gather the sleeping triplets. "You should take them home," he said. "I'll stay here tonight in case anything changes." "Are you sure?" Sarah asked. "Yes. They need their own beds, and someone needs to be here for Grandma." After Sarah left with the girls, Michael sat alone in the waiting room. His phone buzzed with a message from his investigator. "Found solid evidence. DevCorp bribed city officials to expedite demolition permits. Have documentation of payments of $2 million to zoning commissioner. Meeting tomorrow to show you details." This was the break they needed. Proof of corruption that could stop the development. But sitting in the hospital where his grandmother fought for her life, Michael realized this fight was about more than just saving one building. The next morning, Sarah brought the triplets back to the hospital. Mrs. Rose was awake but groggy, her face lighting up when she saw the girls. "My sweet babies," she whispered. "Don't worry about Grandma. I'm not going anywhere yet." Later, as the triplets sat with a child life specialist in the family room, Michael shared the investigators' findings with Sarah. "This could stop the whole project," Sarah said excitedly. "We should take it to the district attorney." "We will," Michael agreed. "But I want to do more than just stop DevCorp." "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking all night," Michael explained. "This neighborhood needs more than just protection from developers. It needs investment, jobs, healthcare." Sarah looked at him curiously. "What are you planning?" Michael took a deep breath. "I'm going to relocate Evans Medical Solutions to Harlem." "Your entire company?" Sarah was shocked. "But your headquarters is in that fancy building on Park Avenue." "The lease is almost up anyway," Michael said. "We can renovate one of the empty commercial buildings on 125th Street. Bring hundreds of jobs to the neighborhood. Start a foundation focused on community health care." "That's a huge change," Sarah said. "Your board will agree to this?" "They'll follow my lead," Michael said confidently. "And if not, I control enough shares to make it happen anyway." That afternoon, Michael called an emergency meeting of his executive team. In the same conference room where he'd discussed buying the apartment building, he now outlined a much more ambitious plan. "Evans Medical Solutions is relocating to Harlem," he announced. "We'll establish our new headquarters there within 6 months, bringing at least 300 jobs to the community." "Michael, this is extremely sudden," Vivian protested. "The cost of relocation alone will be offset by lower rent costs," Michael finished, "and the tax incentives for business development in that area." "Is this because of your grandmother's building?" Eric asked directly. "It started there," Michael admitted, "but it's become something bigger. Our company creates medical technology to help people. Shouldn't we also help communities?" By the end of the meeting, Michael had convinced most of his team. Those still hesitant knew better than to fight him on this. As he signed the initial paperwork to begin the relocation process, Michael felt a sense of certainty he hadn't experienced in years. He was finally doing something that mattered beyond profits and prestige. Outside the building, Richard Wilson's private investigator photographed Michael through the window, sending the image to his boss with a text. "Target is fully committed. Proceed with Plan B." Richard Wilson examined the photos his investigator had sent. Michael Evans was clearly all in on his plan to fight DevCorp. It was time for more aggressive measures. "Amanda, implement Plan B," Richard instructed his sister over the phone. "It's time to make life difficult for the residents of Riverside Heights." The next morning, Michael gathered a team in Mrs. Rose's apartment. 2 lawyers from his company's legal department, Sarah and Jerome Washington from apartment 4B, sat around the kitchen table covered with documents. "We need to attack this from multiple angles," Michael explained. legal challenges to the demolition permits, tenant harassment claims, and public pressure through media coverage. "The bribery evidence is strong," said Diane Ruiz, the lead attorney, "but we need to be careful how we use it. Going public too soon could jeopardize a potential criminal case." "What about forming a coalition?" Sarah suggested. "Not just Riverside Heights residents, but businesses and churches from the neighborhood. Show this isn't just about one building." Jerome nodded enthusiastically. "I know people at First Baptist and Mount Olivet churches. They've been in Harlem for generations. Their support would mean a lot." "The Harlem Heritage Coalition," Michael said thoughtfully. "I like that name. Let's do it." Later that day, Sarah and Michael visited Mrs. Rose, who was recovering well from her surgery. The triplets were drawing pictures beside her bed. "Look, Uncle Michael," Tiana said, holding up her drawing. "I drew you wearing a doctor coat helping Grandma." Michael smiled, taking the picture. "This is wonderful. You're quite the artist." "The doctor said I'm responding very well to treatment," Mrs. Rose told them. "They're talking about sending me home next week if everything continues improving." "That's excellent news," Michael said, genuinely relieved. While Rose rested, Michael took the triplets to the hospital cafeteria. As they ate ice cream, he noticed how much more comfortable they'd become with him. "Uncle Michael, can I ask you a question about doctors?" Tiana asked suddenly. "Of course," Michael replied. "How do they learn to fix people? Do they practice on toys first?" Michael chuckled. "They study for many years. First in books, then by watching other doctors, and they practice certain procedures on special training models before helping real patients." "I want to be a doctor," Tiana declared, "so I can help people like Grandma." Michael felt unexpected emotion well up. "You'd make an excellent doctor, Tiana." Tasha, always the quiet observer, asked, "Can we see your company where you make medicine things?" "Absolutely," Michael promised. "Once Grandma is feeling better, we'll all visit." When they returned to Riverside Heights that evening, they found the entire building without electricity. "Power's been out for 3 hours," Jerome informed them as they climbed the dark stairwell by flashlight. "Amanda claims it's an electrical problem that can't be fixed until tomorrow." "That's ridiculous," Michael said. "I'll call an emergency electrician." "Already tried," Jerome replied. "They said they need management authorization." Michael made calls from his cell phone while Sarah helped the triplets prepare for bed by flashlight. Finally, he reached a city electrical inspector who agreed to come check the situation. 2 hours later, the inspector confirmed what Michael suspected. "There's nothing wrong with the building's electrical system. Someone shut off the main breakers and padlocked them. That's illegal tampering." With the inspector's help, power was restored. But Michael knew this was just the beginning of DevCorp's new tactics. The next morning, Sarah arrived early with a surprising guest, Pastor James Miller from First Baptist Church, one of Harlem's oldest and most respected congregations. "Sarah tells me you're fighting to save our neighborhood, Dr. Evans," the pastor said, shaking Michael's hand. "Our church has been here since 1921. We've seen many attempts to push out our community. We need to organize quickly," Michael explained. "DevCorp is moving fast and playing dirty. Let's hold a community meeting at my church," Pastor Miller suggested. "This Sunday after service, we can officially launch your coalition." That Sunday, more than 200 people packed into First Baptist Church's community hall. Local business owners, church members, residents from Riverside Heights and surrounding buildings filled every seat. Michael stood nervously at the podium, conscious that many viewed him as an outsider despite his family connections. "My name is Michael Evans," he began. "Many of you don't know me. I grew up in Harlem but left 15 years ago. I returned recently to find my grandmother sick and her building under threat." He paused, looking at the skeptical faces. "I understand your suspicion. Where was I all these years while this neighborhood struggled? The truth is, I was building a medical technology company, thinking success meant moving away from my roots. I was wrong. Sarah gave him an encouraging nod from the front row, where she sat with the triplets. DevCorp wants to demolish not just Riverside Heights, but 6 blocks of Harlem. They've bribed officials, harassed tenants, and ignored housing laws. They see buildings. I see homes. They see development opportunities. I see families and history. The room grew quieter as people listened more intently. Today, we're launching the Harlem Heritage Coalition to fight for our neighborhood, and I'm announcing that Evans Medical Solutions will relocate its headquarters to Harlem, bringing hundreds of jobs and establishing a community health center. A murmur of surprise swept through the audience. I can't undo my years of absence, but I can commit my resources and my company to this community's future. Will you join me? The response was cautious but positive. Dozens of people signed up to join the coalition, bringing skills ranging from legal expertise to social media management. As Michael and Sarah walked back to Riverside Heights with the triplets, she bumped his shoulder gently. "That was a good speech," she said. "You're getting better at talking to normal people instead of corporate executives." Michael laughed. "I'm trying." "Uncle Michael, can I have dance classes?" Tara asked suddenly, twirling in circles on the sidewalk. "Dance classes?" Michael repeated. "Grandma said maybe someday," Tara explained, "but we didn't have money for extras." "I think that can be arranged," Michael said, watching her joyful spins. Over the next week, Michael fulfilled his promise. Tara began ballet classes at the Harlem School of Arts. Tasha received a stack of new books on every subject that interested her. And Tiana visited Michael's company labs, wearing a child-sized lab coat he had specially made for her. The triplets were blossoming. But DevCorp's pressure continued to increase. Residents reported water service interruptions. The heating system worked only sporadically despite the chilly October weather. Amanda was seen going door to door telling residents that Michael planned to convert the building into luxury housing once DevCorp was out of the picture. "She's telling people I'm the real threat," Michael told Sarah indignantly as they prepared for a coalition strategy meeting. "Some people believe her," Sarah admitted. "Mrs. Jackson in 2C asked me if you were just another rich developer with a better story." Before Michael could respond, his phone rang. It was Richard Wilson. "Dr. Evans, I'd like to meet for lunch tomorrow. Just the two of us, one businessman to another." Michael agreed, curious about Wilson's approach. They met at an expensive restaurant in Midtown, where Richard was already seated at a corner table. "Thank you for coming," Richard said smoothly. "I wanted to offer you an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" Michael asked. Richard smiled. "We both know how this ends. DevCorp will eventually succeed with our development. The political connections and financial backing are too strong." "I wouldn't be so sure," Michael replied. "What if I offered you exclusive development rights for medical facilities within the new complex? A state-of-the-art clinic, research space, whatever you need. Your company would benefit enormously." Michael kept his face neutral. "You're trying to bribe me to abandon my grandmother's building?" Richard's smile faded. "I'm offering a business solution. If you refuse, things might become difficult for Evans Medical Solutions. There are rumors of irregularities in your clinical trials for the new cardiac device." "There are no irregularities," Michael said firmly. "The perception of irregularities can be just as damaging," Richard warned. "Think about it. Partner with us or face consequences." Back at Riverside Heights, Michael found Sarah organizing paperwork with several coalition members. "How was lunch with the devil?" she asked. "Educational," Michael replied. "He tried to bribe me, then threaten my company when that didn't work." "They're getting desperate," Sarah said. "Our coalition is gaining support. 3 city council members have agreed to review the demolition permits." Michael nodded, but worry nagged at him. Richard Wilson wasn't someone who made empty threats. That evening, Michael called his company's public relations director. "Eric, we need to get ahead of potential negative press. Launch the campaign about our Harlem relocation immediately. Focus on the community health benefits and job creation. Within days, positive stories about Evans Medical Solutions' move to Harlem appeared in newspapers and on local news. The Harlem Heritage Coalition gained visibility as reporters covered their fight against DevCorp. As Michael and Sarah worked late into the night, their professional partnership began to evolve. Michael found himself watching Sarah when she wasn't looking, admiring her dedication and intelligence. Several times, their hands touched as they reached for the same document, creating moments of awkward awareness neither was ready to acknowledge. Outside the building, Amanda Wilson sat in her car, watching. She picked up her phone. "Richard, the media campaign is working against us. Evans is gaining public support. Yes, I understand what's at stake. No, I have another idea. I've been doing some research on Mrs. Rose's cancer treatment. Did you know it technically disqualifies her from maintaining custody of those triplets? Child Protective Services would be very interested in that information." Amanda smiled as she ended the call with her brother. Using Child Protective Services against Mrs. Rose was the perfect strategy. The old woman was too sick to care for 3 young children, and once they were removed, Michael would have no reason to keep fighting for the building. The next morning, Michael was helping the triplets get ready for school when someone knocked loudly on the apartment door. He opened it to find a stern-looking woman holding a folder. "Dr. Michael Evans? I'm Lisa Cooper from Child Protective Services. I need to speak with you regarding the minor children in this residence." Michael felt his stomach drop. "Please come in. May I ask what this is regarding?" Lisa sat at the kitchen table, opening her folder. "We received a report expressing concern about Mrs. Rose Johnson's ability to care for her 3 granddaughters given her terminal cancer diagnosis and ongoing treatment." The triplets, sensing trouble, huddled together in the doorway of their bedroom. "Who filed this report?" Michael asked, already suspecting the answer. "That information is confidential," Lisa replied. "I'm here to schedule a formal evaluation of the home environment and Mrs. Johnson's physical capacity to care for the children." After Lisa left, promising to return in 3 days for a full evaluation, Michael called his lawyer. "Diane, I need to file for emergency temporary guardianship of my nieces immediately. Someone, almost certainly Amanda Wilson, has reported my grandmother to CPS." "This is a serious escalation," Diane replied. "I'll have the paperwork ready within hours. But Michael, you should know that temporary guardianship won't necessarily stop a CPS investigation." Michael next called Dr. Phillips at Memorial Sloan Kettering. "My grandmother needs to be discharged as soon as medically possible. We have a situation with Child Protective Services." "She's recovering well, but this is highly unusual," Dr. Phillips said. "I can potentially release her tomorrow, but she'll need considerable home care." "I'll arrange everything," Michael promised. When Michael told the triplets what was happening, their reaction broke his heart. "Are they taking us away from Grandma?" Tasha asked, her voice tiny. "No, sweetheart," Michael assured her, kneeling to her level. "I won't let that happen." "That's what they told us before," Tiana said, suddenly clinging to Michael's arm. "They said we could stay with Mrs. Peterson forever. Then they took us away." Michael hugged the girls tightly. "This is different. I'm filing papers to be your guardian along with Grandma. Nobody is separating our family again." Despite his confident words, Michael was worried. He called Sarah immediately. "Amanda reported Mrs. Rose to CPS," he told her when she arrived at the apartment. "They're evaluating her fitness as a guardian in 3 days." Sarah's face hardened. "That woman has no shame. What's the plan?" "I'm bringing Grandma home tomorrow, filing for temporary guardianship today, but we need more. I want a child psychologist to document the girl's attachment to both my grandmother and me." "I know someone perfect," Sarah said. "Dr. Elaine Watson. She specializes in children who've experienced trauma and family separation. I'll call her now." While Sarah made arrangements with Dr. Watson, Michael prepared the apartment for Mrs. Rose's return. He hired a hospital bed, arranged for a full-time nurse, and cleaned every surface. The triplets helped, arranging their grandmother's favorite photos and books beside where her bed would be placed. That evening, Michael received a call from Jerome Washington. "Michael, we found something big," the elderly man said excitedly. "My son works in construction. He got hold of inspection reports from DevCorp's last 3 projects. They cut corners everywhere. Faulty electrical work, inadequate fire safety systems, substandard materials. 2 buildings have structural issues already." "This is exactly what we need," Michael said. "Can your son testify about this at the city council meeting next week?" "He's scared of being blacklisted in the industry," Jerome admitted, "but he'll provide the documents anonymously." The next day, Mrs. Rose came home. She was thinner and moved slowly with a walker, but her eyes were bright and determined. The triplets surrounded her immediately, gentle with their hugs as Michael had instructed. "My sweet girls," Mrs. Rose said, touching each of their faces. "I've missed you so much." "We cleaned everything," Tara announced proudly. "And Uncle Michael got you a special bed." Mrs. Rose looked at Michael with gratitude. "Thank you, grandson." "Anything for you, Grandma," he replied sincerely. Dr. Elaine Watson arrived that afternoon. She was a kind-faced woman who quickly established rapport with the triplets. She spent 2 hours observing them with Mrs. Rose and Michael, taking notes and occasionally asking gentle questions. After the girls went to their room to play, Dr. Watson shared her observations. "These children have formed a secure attachment to Mrs. Johnson despite their previous trauma. The stability she provides is crucial to their emotional development," she explained, "and they're beginning to form a similar bond with you, Dr. Evans. Separating them from either of you would likely cause significant psychological harm." "Will your assessment help with CPS?" Michael asked. "Absolutely. I'll prepare a formal report recommending that the family remain together, with you as co-guardian to support your grandmother." Later that day, Michael's company officially announced its relocation to Harlem. The press release highlighted the 300 jobs that would move to the neighborhood and detailed plans for a community health center that would provide free or reduced-cost care to local residents. The announcement generated positive media coverage, but Richard Wilson counterattacked quickly. That evening, a local news segment featured Richard questioning Michael's motives. "Michael Evans abandoned Harlem for 15 years, Richard told the reporter. "Now he suddenly cares about the community? This is a transparent attempt to block necessary development while positioning his company to profit from the area's eventual revitalization." The reporter turned to the camera. "We reached out to Dr. Evans for comment on allegations that he plans to develop the property himself once DevCorp is out of the picture." Michael turned off the television in disgust. "That's completely false." Sarah squeezed his hand. "People who know you won't believe it." "But many don't know me," Michael said. "I've been gone a long time." The day before the CPS evaluation, Michael took the day off to prepare. He and the triplets cleaned the apartment thoroughly. The nurse he'd hired helped Mrs. Rose practice walking short distances to demonstrate her improving mobility. Sarah arrived with groceries and helped stock the refrigerator with healthy foods. "Lisa Cooper is actually one of the good ones," she told Michael. "Fair, but thorough. She won't be easily fooled by either side." That evening, as Michael tucked the triplets into bed, Tiana handed him a folded piece of paper. "We made this for you." Inside were 3 handmade cards. Each one had a child's drawing of Michael with one of the triplets. Above the pictures in careful handwriting were the words, "Our Uncle Michael." "Open mine next," Tara insisted, giving him another card with a drawing of him dancing with her. Tasha's card was last. Her drawing showed Michael reading a book to her, with careful letters spelling out, "Thank you for coming back." Michael felt tears forming. "These are the best cards I've ever received," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Are you crying?" Tiana asked curiously. "A little," Michael admitted. "Sometimes adults cry when they're happy." "We decided you're really our uncle now," Tasha explained seriously. "Not just because you're related to us." That means so much to me, Michael said, hugging each girl. After the triplets fell asleep, Michael's phone rang. It was Amanda Wilson. "Dr. Evans, I think we got off on the wrong foot," she said, her voice falsely pleasant. "Perhaps we can find a compromise about the building situation." Michael pressed the record button on his phone, then put it on speaker. "What kind of compromise?" "If you drop your opposition to our development and that ridiculous coalition, I might be able to help resolve this unfortunate CPS situation." "Are you admitting you filed the CPS report?" Michael asked clearly. Amanda laughed. "Let's just say I know people who could make the investigation go away. These things happen all the time with elderly guardians. Surely you see that your grandmother isn't capable of raising 3 young children? So you're using CPS as leverage to force my family out of their home?" Michael confirmed, making sure to get her admission on record. "Business is business, Dr. Evans. Those children will end up in foster care anyway when your grandmother's condition worsens. You could avoid all that unpleasantness by simply stepping aside on the development issue." "That's not going to happen," Michael said firmly. "Then be prepared for the consequences," Amanda snapped, her friendly tone vanishing. "Those children will be removed from that apartment and there's nothing you can do about it." After ending the call, Michael saved the recording and sent it to his lawyer. This was clear evidence of Amanda's malicious intent that could help with both the CPS case and potential legal action against DevCorp. The next morning, Michael woke early to make breakfast for the family. Mrs. Rose sat at the kitchen table, looking better than she had in weeks. The treatment was working, and being home seemed to have strengthened her spirit. "We're ready for this," Michael assured her as they waited for Lisa Cooper's arrival. The CPS evaluation lasted 3 hours. Lisa inspected every room, reviewed Mrs. Rose's medical records and treatment plan, observed the triplets interacting with both adults, and interviewed each child separately. She also read Dr. Watson's psychological assessment. When she finally closed her notebook, Lisa's expression was neutral, but not unkind. "I'll be filing my report today," she told Michael and Mrs. Rose. "Based on what I've seen, the children appear well cared for and emotionally secure. Dr. Evans, your guardianship petition helps address concerns about Mrs. Johnson's health challenges." After Lisa left, the family exhaled in collective relief. "We did it, Grandma," Michael said, hugging Mrs. Rose gently. "We're not out of the woods yet," she reminded him. "There's still DevCorp to deal with. The city council meeting is in 2 days." Sarah arrived that evening with dinner for everyone and news about the upcoming meeting. "We have 23 residents prepared to testify," she reported, "plus business owners, church leaders, and community activists. The council won't be able to ignore us." As Sarah and Michael reviewed their strategy at the kitchen table, Mrs. Rose watched them with a knowing smile. "You two make a good team," she observed. "Reminds me of Thomas and me when we were young activists." Both Michael and Sarah blushed, but didn't deny the growing connection between them. Late that night, after everyone else was asleep, Michael's phone lit up with a text from his investigator. "Found the smoking gun? DevCorp's entire Harlem project is built on fraudulent permits, and Richard Wilson personally bribed the zoning commissioner with documented payments of $2 million. Michael immediately called his investigator. "I need those documents first thing tomorrow morning." "Already on my way to you," David Torres replied. "This is too sensitive to risk digital transmission. I'll be at your place by 7 in the morning." Michael barely slept. By 6:30 in the morning, he was making coffee when David knocked softly on the apartment door. "Sorry for the early hour," David said, handing Michael a thick envelope. "But what's in here could send Richard Wilson to prison." Inside were bank statements showing transactions between Richard Wilson's personal account and zoning commissioner Frank Thompson. Emails between Richard and Thompson discussed expediting approvals and bypassing standard procedures for the Harlem project. "This is incredible," Michael said. "How did you get these?" "A whistleblower inside DevCorp," David explained. someone who's tired of their illegal practices. They also provided evidence that DevCorp falsified structural safety reports on their previous 3 buildings. After David left, Michael called Sarah and their legal team. Within an hour, they were spread around Mrs. Rose's kitchen table, reviewing the explosive documents. "This changes everything," Diane Ruiz said, examining the bank records. "We need to present this to the district attorney immediately." "Not yet," Michael cautioned. "If we go to the DA now, Richard might hear about it and disappear the evidence. We need to present this publicly at the council meeting tomorrow, with media present." Sarah agreed. "We should make copies of everything and store them in different locations. Richard Wilson has too many connections to risk losing this evidence." As they were finalizing their strategy, Michael received a call from Lisa Cooper at CPS. "Dr. Evans, I've completed my report," she said. "Based on my evaluation, the children appear well cared for in their current environment. With your guardianship petition in place to support Mrs. Johnson, I see no reason to recommend removal of the children." "Thank you," Michael said, relief washing over him. "What happens next?" "There will be a formal hearing in 2 weeks to finalize everything, but given my recommendation and Dr. Watson's psychological assessment, it should be a formality." Michael shared the good news with Mrs. Rose and the triplets, who celebrated by drawing a giant Family Forever poster for their bedroom wall. Later that afternoon, Michael's assistant called with alarming news. "Richard Wilson has somehow convinced Council President Garcia to move tomorrow's vote on the Harlem redevelopment to 10 a.m. instead of 4 p.m., she reported. "They just announced the schedule change." "They're trying to catch us unprepared," Michael realized. "Call everyone in the coalition. Tell them we need to be at City Hall by 9 a.m. That evening, while the triplets were helping Mrs. Rose sort through old photographs, Michael and Sarah made final preparations for the council meeting. "Are you nervous?" Sarah asked as they organized their presentation materials. "Terrified," Michael admitted. "Not about facing Richard, but about letting down my family. I abandoned them once. I can't fail them again." Sarah squeezed his hand. "You won't. And you're not alone this time." The intensity of her gaze made Michael's heart beat faster. He leaned forward slightly and Sarah didn't pull away. Their lips were inches apart when Tara burst into the room. "Uncle Michael! Grandma wants to know if she can come to the meeting tomorrow." Michael pulled back, the moment broken. "Grandma should rest, sweetheart. It's going to be a long, boring meeting." "But she says she needs to be there," Tara insisted. "She says it's her home too." Mrs. Rose appeared in the doorway, using her walker but standing straighter than she had in weeks. "I'm coming to that meeting, Michael," she said firmly. "This is my fight as much as yours." "Grandma, you're still recovering from surgery," Michael protested. "I'm feeling stronger every day," Mrs. Rose replied. "Those treatments are working. And I want those Wilson people to see the faces of the people they're trying to hurt." Michael knew that determined look. "All right, but we're bringing your nurse, and you'll tell me immediately if you feel tired." The next morning was a flurry of activity. Michael helped Mrs. Rose dress while Sarah got the triplets ready for school. "We want to come too," Tiana protested. "You have school," Michael reminded her. "But it's our home too," Tasha said quietly. "Grandma says everyone should fight for what's important." Michael and Sarah exchanged looks. Sarah nodded. "All right," Michael agreed, "but you'll need to be very quiet and sit still during the meeting." The coalition members gathered on the steps of City Hall at 9 a.m. More than 50 residents from Riverside Heights and surrounding buildings stood together, holding signs that read, "Save Harlem's Heritage" and "People over Profit." Inside the council chambers, Michael was surprised to see every seat filled. News cameras lined the back wall. Richard and Amanda Wilson sat in the front row with a team of lawyers and several well-dressed supporters. Council President Garcia called the meeting to order precisely at 10 a.m. "Today we are considering final approval for the DevCorp Harlem Revitalization Project," she announced. "We will first hear from the developer, followed by community responses." Richard Wilson approached the podium confidently, wearing an expensive suit and a practiced smile. Council members, the Harlem Revitalization Project represents a $200 million investment in an area that desperately needs modernization. He began smoothly. Our development will create hundreds of construction jobs, improve infrastructure, and attract new businesses to the neighborhood. He clicked through slides showing beautiful renderings of modern buildings with tree-lined streets. This area currently suffers from aging infrastructure, high crime rates, and deteriorating housing stock, Richard continued. Our plan will transform these 6 blocks into a vibrant, safe community with mixed-income housing options. When Richard finished his presentation, several council members nodded approvingly. He had painted a compelling picture of progress and improvement. Next, Amanda Wilson spoke, emphasizing how current residents would receive relocation assistance and job training opportunities. Several business allies followed, each praising DevCorp's vision and financial commitment. Finally, it was the coalition's turn. Michael approached the podium, his heart pounding. Council members, my name is Dr. Michael Evans. My grandmother, Rose Johnson, has lived in Riverside Heights for over 40 years. The building DevCorp wants to demolish isn't just an aging structure. It's a home to dozens of families with deep roots in this community. Michael clicked to his first slide, showing actual photographs of Riverside Heights residents in front of their building. DevCorp has presented a vision of progress that erases the existing community, Michael continued. But what they haven't told you is how they've operated. Michael methodically presented evidence of tenant harassment, including testimony from elderly residents who had their heat shut off in winter, their water service disrupted, and received intimidating visits from Amanda Wilson. This isn't revitalization, Michael argued. It's displacement for profit. Richard Wilson whispered urgently to his lawyers, clearly uncomfortable with Michael's presentation. But the most damaging evidence was still to come. Most concerning, Michael said, clicking to a new slide, is how this project has secured its approvals. He displayed the bank records and emails showing payments from Richard Wilson to Zoning Commissioner Thompson. These documents show that Richard Wilson personally paid $2 million to Commissioner Thompson in exchange for expedited approvals and bypassing safety requirements, Michael explained. The council chambers erupted in shocked murmurs. Richard Wilson stood up angrily. "This is slander!" he shouted. "Those documents are fabricated." Council President Garcia banged her gavel. "Order! Mr. Wilson, you will have an opportunity to respond." Michael continued, presenting evidence of falsified safety reports and building code violations in previous DevCorp projects. 3 buildings developed by DevCorp in Brooklyn have serious structural issues that were covered up during inspection, Michael explained. "Is this the company you want rebuilding Harlem?" When Michael finished, Richard Wilson stormed to the podium, his face red with anger. "These accusations are completely false," he insisted. "Dr. Evans has a personal vendetta against our company. He abandoned Harlem for 15 years, made his fortune elsewhere, and now returns to block much-needed development." Several of Richard's political allies on the council nodded supportively. Despite the evidence Michael had presented, it seemed Richard's connections might still win the day. Then, a small voice spoke from the back of the room. "My grandma needs to talk now." All heads turned to see Tiana standing in the aisle, her hand raised high. Behind her, Mrs. Rose was slowly making her way forward with her walker, flanked by Tasha and Tara. Council President Garcia, surprised by the interruption, nodded. "We will hear from Mrs. Rose Johnson." Michael helped his grandmother to the podium, adjusting the microphone for her height. "My name is Rose Johnson," she began, her voice thin but clear. "I was a kindergarten teacher at Harlem Elementary for 40 years. I've lived in Riverside Heights since 1979. She looked directly at the council members. "I know you see an old building when you look at Riverside Heights, but I see the place where I raised my daughter, where I'm now raising my great-granddaughters after losing both my daughter and granddaughter." Mrs. Rose pointed to the triplets. "These girls have already lost their parents. Now you want to take away their home too? The chamber was completely silent as Mrs. Rose continued. Amanda Wilson threatened to take my wedding ring when I fell behind on rent. She turned off our heat last winter when I complained about leaks. She's trying to force us out because we're not rich enough for her vision of Harlem. Richard Wilson interrupted. Mrs. Johnson, while your situation is unfortunate, I'm not finished, Mrs. Rose said firmly. Young man, I was fighting for Harlem when you were still in diapers. Don't interrupt me now. A ripple of approving laughter ran through the audience. My family has been in Harlem for 3 generations, Mrs. Rose continued. We survived hard times because we had neighbors who cared for each other. That's what makes a community. Not fancy buildings, but people who look out for one another. As Mrs. Rose finished speaking, the triplets stood beside her, their small faces solemn and determined. The image of the elderly woman and 3 young girls standing together created a powerful moment that the news cameras captured perfectly. Michael stepped forward again. Council members, there's one more piece of evidence you should hear. He played the recorded conversation with Amanda Wilson, where she clearly admitted to filing the false CPS report as leverage and threatened to have the children removed if Michael didn't back down. Richard Wilson's face contorted with rage. He lunged toward Michael, grabbing for the phone. You recorded my sister illegally, he shouted. The triplets moved instantly, positioning themselves between Michael and Richard. Don't hurt our uncle, Tiana shouted, her small hands balled into fists. Security guards quickly intervened, restraining Richard Wilson, who continued shouting threats. Council President Garcia banged her gavel repeatedly. Order! This meeting will come to order immediately. When the chaos subsided, Garcia announced, in light of the serious allegations presented today, I am calling for an immediate vote to suspend all permits related to the DevCorp Harlem project, pending a full investigation by the District Attorney's Office. The vote was 9-2 in favor of suspension. Richard and Amanda Wilson were escorted from the chambers as reporters surrounded Michael, Mrs. Rose, and the triplets. Outside City Hall, the coalition members celebrated. Mrs. Rose sat on a bench, tired but triumphant, watching her great-granddaughters jump up and down with excitement. We did it, Grandma, Tara exclaimed, spinning in circles. We saved our home, Tasha added. Michael knelt beside Mrs. Rose. You were amazing in there. We were amazing, she corrected him, patting his hand. That's what family does, stands together. Sarah joined them, her face glowing with victory. The DA is already reviewing our evidence. Richard Wilson won't be bribing anyone else for a long time. As reporters approached for interviews, Michael noticed Mrs. Rose looking unusually pale. Grandma, are you all right? He asked, instantly concerned. Just tired, she assured him, but her breathing seemed labored. Michael quickly called for the nurse who had accompanied them. As she checked Mrs. Rose's vital signs, her expression grew serious. Her blood pressure is very low, the nurse said quietly. We should get her to the hospital immediately. Michael's joy at their victory instantly transformed into fear as he called for an ambulance. The celebration around them faltered as everyone realized something was wrong. As the paramedics loaded Mrs. Rose into the ambulance, her hand clutched Michael's tightly. Don't worry about me, she whispered. We won today. That's what matters. Michael climbed into the ambulance beside her, his heart racing with fear. As the doors closed, his phone rang. It was Mrs. Rose's oncologist. Dr. Evans? The cancer is showing resistance to treatment. We need to discuss more aggressive options immediately. The hospital waiting room was cold and bright. Michael paced back and forth while Sarah sat with the triplets, who were unusually quiet. They had gone from celebration to crisis in minutes. Dr. Patel emerged from the examination room with a serious expression. Dr. Evans, can we speak privately? Michael followed him to a small consultation room. The cancer is showing resistance to our current treatment protocol, Dr. Patel explained. The most recent scans show new growth in her liver. But she was doing better, Michael protested. You said the treatment was working. It was, initially. But cancer can adapt. We need to try a more aggressive approach immediately. What are her chances? Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Patel hesitated. With standard treatment at this point, maybe a month. With an experimental protocol I'm developing, we might extend that significantly. There's even a small possibility of remission, but the side effects will be severe. Michael rubbed his face. What would you do if she was your grandmother? I'd try the experimental protocol, Dr. Patel said without hesitation. Mrs. Johnson has shown remarkable resilience. If anyone can handle it, she can. Michael agreed to the treatment, then returned to the waiting room. The triplets looked up at him with worried eyes. Is Grandma going to heaven like Mommy and Daddy? Tasha asked directly. Michael knelt before them. The doctors are trying a new medicine that might help Grandma get better. She's very sick, but she's also very strong. Can we see her? Tiana asked. Soon, Michael promised. She's resting now. While the triplets colored pictures for their grandmother, Michael and Sarah stepped into the hallway to talk. The new treatment is her best chance, Michael explained. But it's going to be rough. I need to figure out how to care for her and the girls at the same time. Sarah squeezed his hand. You have help now. The entire building is ready to support you. Michael's phone rang. It was his investigator, David. Richard and Amanda Wilson have both been brought in for questioning by the district attorney, David reported. The DA is considering criminal charges for bribery and corruption. That's good news, Michael said, though the victory felt hollow while his grandmother lay ill. Later that day, when Mrs. Rose was stabilized, the family was allowed to visit briefly. Despite her weakness, she smiled at the sight of the triplets. My brave girls, she whispered. Did you behave for Uncle Michael? We were good, Tara assured her. We made you pictures. After the short visit, Mrs. Rose asked to speak with Michael alone. The doctor told me about the new treatment, she said, and about my chances. Grandma, don't... Hush, child. I'm 80 years old. I've lived a full life. But I need to know the girls will be taken care of if this treatment doesn't work. Michael took her hand. I've already filed for permanent adoption. They'll always have a home with me. Mrs. Rose looked relieved. You've changed so much since you came back. Your mother would be proud of the man you've become. 3 days later, Mrs. Rose began the experimental treatment. The side effects were brutal: extreme fatigue, nausea, and weakness. Michael hired round-the-clock nursing care and set up a hospital bed in the living room so she could be home with the family. Meanwhile, Michael was busy implementing his plan to protect the neighborhood. He established the Johnson Family Trust, naming Mrs. Rose himself and the triplets as beneficiaries. Through this trust, he began negotiating to purchase Riverside Heights from its current owner, who was eager to sell after DevCorp's plans collapsed. The building needs extensive renovations, Robert, his financial advisor, warned during a meeting in the apartment. The cost will be substantial. I know, Michael acknowledged, but we're not stopping with just this building. I want the trust to acquire the other properties DevCorp was targeting. All 6 blocks? Robert looked shocked. Michael, that's an enormous investment. These properties have been neglected for years. With proper renovation and management, they'll provide stable, affordable housing and generate reasonable returns. It's good business and good for the community. The news about DevCorp continued to worsen for the Wilsons. Richard was indicted on 7 counts of bribery and corruption. Amanda faced charges for tenant harassment and filing false reports with Child Protective Services. DevCorp's stock price plummeted as other communities where they operated began questioning their practices. One evening, while the triplets did homework at the kitchen table, Sarah arrived with dinner for everyone. I have news, she announced. The City Council unanimously approved your proposal for the community health clinic. They're fast-tracking the permits. Michael smiled. That's wonderful. We can break ground next month. The clinic was a key part of Michael's vision. Located on the ground floor of a building adjacent to Riverside Heights, it would provide affordable health care to neighborhood residents with free services for seniors and children. The council was impressed by your commitment to hire local residents for both construction and permanent positions, Sarah added. After dinner, while Mrs. Rose rested, Michael and Sarah reviewed renovation plans for the apartment building. Their heads bent together over blueprints spread across the coffee table. They didn't notice Mrs. Rose watching them with a smile. "You two remind me of Thomas and me," she said softly. "Always planning, always working to make things better." Sarah blushed. "We're just colleagues, Mrs. Johnson." Mrs. Rose chuckled. "If you say so, dear." Later that week, Michael faced pushback from some of his company's investors. Several board members requested an emergency meeting to discuss his recent decisions. "Dr. Evans, while we appreciate your personal connection to Harlem, the company's sudden focus on community development is concerning," said Bernard Whitman, a major shareholder. "Our primary responsibility is to our investors." "Our investors will benefit from these initiatives," Michael countered. "The health clinic will serve as a real-world testing ground for our new technologies. The relocation saves millions in rent, and the goodwill generated by our community involvement is already improving our public image." Though Michael won the argument, he understood that not everyone shared his vision of corporate social responsibility. Some investors would always prioritize short-term profits over community impact. Back at home, the triplets were thriving despite the stressful circumstances. Tiana continued to express interest in medicine, watching attentively whenever the nurses cared for Mrs. Rose. Tasha devoured books about every subject, her vocabulary expanding rapidly. Tara's dance classes had become the highlight of her week, her natural grace blossoming with proper instruction. One Saturday morning, Michael took them to visit his company's research laboratory. Dressed in child-sized lab coats, they peered through microscopes and asked endless questions. "This is where we develop new medicines," Michael explained as they toured the facility, "similar to the treatment helping Grandma." "Will I work here someday?" Tiana asked. "If that's what you want," Michael replied. "You can be anything you choose to be." "I want to help sick people like Grandma," she declared. As weeks passed, Mrs. Rose's condition stabilized. The aggressive treatment was brutal, but preliminary scans showed the cancer had stopped growing. It was too early to claim victory, but Dr. Patel was cautiously optimistic. "Her response is better than I expected," he told Michael during a home visit. "Her strength is remarkable for someone her age." Meanwhile, the renovation of Riverside Heights began. Michael ensured that work was done one apartment at a time so residents could remain in the building. New heating systems, updated plumbing, repaired roofs, and fresh paint transformed the aging structure while preserving its historic character. Sarah continued to spend more time with the family, her relationship with Michael deepening beyond their professional collaboration. Though neither had formally acknowledged their feelings, their growing closeness was obvious to everyone around them. One evening, after the triplets were asleep, Mrs. Rose called Michael to her bedside. She seemed unusually serious. "Michael, bring me my jewelry box from the dresser," she requested. He retrieved the small wooden box, placing it on her lap. Mrs. Rose opened it and removed her gold wedding band. "This ring was the circle of endless love between me and your grandfather," she said, holding it up. "For 47 years I wore it every day. When times were hard, people told me to sell it, but I never could." She took Michael's hand and pressed the ring into his palm. "Now it represents our family circle that you've finally completed. I want you to have it." "Grandma, no," Michael protested. "This is your most precious possession. And now I'm giving it to you," she insisted. "One day, you might want to give it to someone special." Her eyes flickered meaningfully toward the kitchen where Sarah was washing dishes. Michael was overwhelmed with emotion. "I don't deserve this." "You came back when we needed you most," Mrs. Rose said simply. "You saved our home, you're caring for the girls, You've become the man your grandfather always believed you could be." Michael carefully placed the ring in his pocket, then hugged his grandmother gently. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he whispered. The next day, Michael met with his lawyer to finalize the adoption paperwork for the triplets. Though Mrs. Rose was showing improvement, he wanted to ensure the girls' future was secure regardless of what happened. "The adoption should be straightforward," Diane Ruiz explained. "With Mrs. Johnson's full support and your demonstrated commitment over these past months, the court will likely approve quickly. And Mrs. Rose will remain their guardian as long as her health allows?" Michael confirmed. "Yes, you'll have joint legal guardianship. The girls can continue living with her while you provide support and security." That evening, members of the Harlem Heritage Coalition gathered to help paint the community room in Riverside Heights. Elderly residents worked alongside young families, everyone contributing to the building's revival. "This place hasn't looked this good in 20 years, Jerome Washington commented, admiring the fresh paint. "It's just the beginning," Michael promised. "Wait until you see the rooftop garden we're planning." As Michael watched the community coming together, he felt a sense of belonging he'd never experienced in his years of corporate success. His phone buzzed with a text message, interrupting his thoughts. It was from an unknown number. "I've lost everything because of you, Dr. Evans, but before this ends, I'm going to make sure you understand what it feels like to have your life's work destroyed." Michael recognized Richard Wilson's threat immediately. Despite the man's legal troubles, he was still dangerous. Michael showed the message to his security team, who promised to increase surveillance around the building. But as he looked at the triplets laughing as they painted alongside their neighbors, Michael knew that no threat could make him abandon his family again. This was his home now, and he would protect it at all costs. Despite Richard Wilson's threatening message, Michael moved forward with his plans for the neighborhood. He increased security around Riverside Heights, but refused to let fear control his family's life. 6 months passed. The harsh New York winter gave way to spring, bringing dramatic changes to the Harlem neighborhood surrounding Riverside Heights. The once neglected apartment building now stood proudly with its restored brick facade, new windows, and a colorful community garden where a vacant lot once collected trash. Inside, the apartments had been carefully renovated one by one, allowing residents to remain in their homes during the work. On a bright May morning, Michael stood on the sidewalk outside the Johnson Community Health Clinic, watching people enter through its gleaming glass doors. The clinic occupied the ground floor of a formerly abandoned building adjacent to Riverside Heights. A steady stream of patients arrived, greeted by staff who reflected the diversity of the neighborhood. Dr. Karen Phillips, who now served as the clinic's medical director, approached Michael with a clipboard. "We just served our 100th patient today," she reported proudly. "That's a new daily record." "How many were uninsured?" Michael asked. "About 40%, she replied. "Thanks to the foundation's subsidies, they all received care they would have otherwise gone without." Michael nodded, satisfied. The clinic was fulfilling exactly the purpose he had envisioned, providing quality health care to all community members regardless of their ability to pay. Across the street, another building hummed with activity. The new headquarters of Evans Medical Solutions occupied a completely renovated former department store. Through the large windows, Michael could see employees moving through the bright, open workspace. His assistant, Emma, exited the building and hurried over to him. "Michael, your 2 o'clock meeting with the research team is about to start," she reminded him. "Thanks, Emma. I'm heading there now." As he walked toward his company's entrance, Michael reflected on how drastically his life had changed. 6 months ago, he had been living in a sterile Manhattan penthouse, isolated from any real community. Now he lived in a modest 3-bedroom apartment in Riverside Heights, just down the hall from his grandmother. Inside his office, decorated simply with family photos and children's artwork, Michael met with his research team about a new portable diagnostic device designed specifically for underserved communities. After the meeting, he walked the 4 blocks to Memorial Sloan Kettering for Mrs. Rose's appointment. He found her already in the examination room with Dr. Patel, both of them smiling broadly. "Michael, wonderful news," Mrs. Rose called out. "The cancer is in remission." Dr. Patel nodded confirmation. "The latest scans show no detectable cancer activity. The experimental treatment worked better than we anticipated. While we'll need regular monitoring, Mrs. Johnson has achieved what we consider a clinical remission." Michael hugged his grandmother carefully, joy and relief washing over him. "That's incredible, Grandma. The doctor says I might live to see those girls graduate high school after all," Mrs. Rose said, wiping happy tears from her eyes. Later that afternoon, Michael picked up the triplets from school. At almost 6 years old, they had grown taller and more confident over the past months. "Uncle Michael!" Tiana called, running to him. Her teacher followed with a folder of papers. "Dr. Evans, I wanted to show you Tiana's science project," the teacher said. "It's exceptional for her age. She designed an experiment about how plants grow with different types of water." "That doesn't surprise me," Michael said proudly. "She's been reading my old medical textbooks." Tasha approached more sedately, carrying a certificate. "I won the reading competition," she announced. "I read 32 books this month." "That's amazing," Michael told her. "We'll put your certificate on the refrigerator next to Tara's dance recital photo." Speaking of Tara, she spun in circles around them, practicing the ballet moves from her class. "Miss Jennifer says I might get a solo in the next recital," she said breathlessly. As they walked home, Michael marveled at how much the girls had flourished once they felt secure in their family and home. Their individual personalities had blossomed: Tiana the scientist, Tasha the scholar, and Tara the artist. At home, Sarah was helping Mrs. Rose prepare dinner. Over the past months, Sarah had spent more and more time with the family. 2 months ago, she and Michael had finally acknowledged their feelings for each other, and they were now officially dating. "Guess what?" Michael announced as they entered. "Grandma is officially in remission." Sarah rushed to hug Mrs. Rose while the triplets danced around them, cheering. "This calls for a celebration," Sarah declared. "I brought ice cream for dessert, but maybe we need something more special." "Ice cream is perfect," Mrs. Rose insisted. "Having my family together and healthy is all the celebration I need." During dinner, they discussed plans for Mrs. Rose's 81st birthday party just 2 weeks away. The entire building would gather in the new community garden for the celebration. "I want a chocolate cake," Mrs. Rose declared, "and no fuss about presents." Having this family together is gift enough. Later that evening, after the triplets were in bed, Michael, Sarah, and Mrs. Rose sat in the living room drinking tea. "Did you hear about Richard Wilson?" Sarah asked. "No, what happened?" Michael replied. "He was arrested again yesterday for violating his bail conditions. Apparently, he was trying to spread rumors that the health clinic was practicing without proper licensing." Michael shook his head. "Even facing prison time, he can't let it go. Some people never learn," Mrs. Rose observed. "What about his sister?" "Amanda took a plea deal," Sarah explained. "No jail time, but she has to pay significant restitution to the tenants she harassed. She's moved to Florida, from what I heard." Michael's phone rang. It was Jerome Washington from down the hall. "Michael, the garden benches were delivered. They look great, but we need help getting them in place before Mrs. Rose's birthday party. I'll come down tomorrow with some volunteers from the office," Michael promised. The next 2 weeks passed quickly. The community garden was transformed with colorful flowers, comfortable benches, and strings of lights for the celebration. Michael had secretly arranged for a professional photographer to capture the event. On the morning of Mrs. Rose's birthday, the triplets woke early, excited about the party. They had been practicing a special dance routine for weeks as their gift to their grandmother. "Uncle Michael, is it time to go to the garden yet?" Tara asked for the 5th time that hour. "Not until 4 o'clock, he reminded her patiently. "But you can help me wrap Grandma's present." Together, they wrapped a beautiful photo album containing pictures of the family and the neighborhood from the past 6 months, documenting their journey together. At exactly 4 o'clock, they escorted Mrs. Rose to the garden, where more than 50 neighbors waited to surprise her. The transformation of the space from an empty lot to a vibrant garden symbolized the larger changes in the community. "Happy birthday!" everyone shouted as she entered. Mrs. Rose placed her hands over her heart, overwhelmed by the turnout. Neighbors had brought food representing the diverse cultures of the building: Puerto Rican rice and beans, Jamaican jerk chicken, soul food classics, and Dominican pastries. After everyone ate, the triplets performed their dance routine, moving in perfect unison to Mrs. Rose's favorite song. The audience applauded enthusiastically, many wiping away tears at the sight of the three little girls who had faced so much loss now dancing with such joy. Michael stepped forward to make an announcement. "Today, as we celebrate Grandma Rose's 81st birthday, I have some news to share. Yesterday, the adoption of Tiana, Tasha, and Tara was finalized. They are officially my daughters." The crowd cheered as the triplets rushed to hug him. "But," Michael continued, "Mrs. Rose Johnson remains their primary caregiver, with me as co-parent." This arrangement honors the incredible bond they share with their great-grandmother while ensuring their future is secure. Mrs. Rose stood, leaning slightly on her cane but stronger than she had been in months. "I want to say something to all of you," she began. "When I first took in these girls after losing my granddaughter and her husband, I worried that at my age, I couldn't give them everything they needed. Then my grandson Michael returned, and our family circle became complete again." She looked around at the gathered neighbors. "But family isn't just about blood. It's about community. Everyone in this building has become part of our extended family. You checked on us during hard times. You joined our fight to save our home, and now you celebrate with us in good times." Many nodded in agreement, some wiping away tears. "My husband Thomas always said that wealth isn't what you have, but what you give back." Mrs. Rose continued, "Michael, you've finally learned that lesson." Michael smiled, emotion tightening his throat. He reached into his pocket, feeling the wedding ring Mrs. Rose had given him. He glanced at Sarah, who stood nearby with a camera, capturing the moment. "Grandma is right," Michael said, "which is why today I'm announcing the establishment of the Rose Johnson Community Foundation. This foundation will help vulnerable residents throughout Harlem maintain their homes and access health care. It will provide educational scholarships and support local businesses." The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause. What had begun as one man's return to make amends had become a movement that preserved the heart and soul of a historic neighborhood. As twilight fell, the garden lights came on, creating a magical atmosphere. Mrs. Rose sat on a new bench, watching the triplets play with other children from the building. "You've done good, grandson," she said as Michael joined her. "Your mother would be proud." "I couldn't have done it without you," Michael replied. Sarah approached with a small potted tree. "The girls picked this out. They want to plant it in the garden to mark this day." Mrs. Rose stood up, taking the hands of her great-granddaughters. "Let's plant it together," she suggested, "a symbol of our future." As the family gathered around the small tree, digging in the soil together, Michael felt a profound sense of peace. His grandmother wore her wedding ring again. He had insisted she keep it, promising to find another ring when the time was right with Sarah. Looking around at the community he had once abandoned and now helped revitalize, Michael realized that his true legacy wouldn't be his medical innovations or business success, but the family and community bonds he had helped restore. In finding his way back to his roots, he had discovered a future far richer than the isolated success he had once prized, proving that sometimes the greatest journey is the one that brings you home. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.